All right, so we're going to start out by looking at section 2.1. And this is on graphing and writing linear inequalities. So graphing is more like making a picture. Writing is taking like a sentence and translating it to an inequality. Okay, so something like, Joe has, well, I'll show you guys an example. Okay, but 4 basic symbols that we talk about when we use inequalities. So you guys have some of this already written, but in that first blank, you want to write down everything after symbol. So an inequality is a symbol that compares 2 expressions. So an expression is it's one of the very first things that we learned about. Okay, an expression. That's an expression. Okay, specifically that's called an algebraic expression. That's an expression. 12. Okay, we call that a numeric expression because there's no letter in it. Now, if we put an inequality sign between them, like that one, now we just created an inequality. 3x is less than 12. So an expression on the left, expression on the right, and an inequality symbol between them. So there are 4 inequality symbols. We went through them in the warm-up. We're going to go through them again, but I'm also going to tell you some other ways you can say it besides just the standard way. So let's start with this top one. Here, how about Dory? Can you remind me, what is that top symbol?
Less than?
Less than, right? 6 is less than 10. That's one way you could use it as an inequality. 6 is less than. Or you could just say less than. Another way you can say that one is fewer than. The amount of money Sarah has, or the number of dollars that Sarah has, is fewer than the number of dollars Bill has. Is fewer than is just another way to say it. So is less than or is fewer than. Abby, how about the one right below it?
Is equal to?
That's part of it. Something else you need in front of that.
Or greater than?
So greater than, that's going to be the third one. But this symbol does not just mean is equal to. Yep. Less than or equal to. Okay, so less than or equal to. Another way to say that one is at most. Let's think about that for a second. At most. If I said to you right now, I have at most $20 on it. I have at most $20. How much money does that mean I have? If I said at most $20. Yep. That means I have $20 or I could have less. That's like saying I have less than or equal to $20. Okay, so at most is another way of saying less than or equal to. Another way of saying it is no more than. Okay, if I was going to buy something at a store and I said, I don't want to pay any more than $10 for that. I don't want to pay any more than $10. If I said I don't want to pay more than 10, that means I'd be willing to pay 10 or less. But I don't want to go more than 10. Okay, so no more than. All right, let's look at the third one. Joe, what's that third symbol?
More than or greater than?
Yep, greater than. And another way to say it is more than. So is greater than or is more than. The amount of money John has is greater than Sarah. That'd be a greater than symbol. The amount of money John has is more than Sarah. Same thing. Still a greater than. And let's look at this last one. So we could say this last one 3 different ways. And if you look at the 3 ways we just did this one, you can probably figure out the 3 ways we can say this one. So what do you think one way, like the basic way, we can say this bottom one is? Yeah? Yeah, Tia? Is greater than or equal to. That's kind of the standard way you'd say. Is greater than or equal to. What do you think the second way would be? It's going to be the opposite of is at most. What's the opposite of saying at most? Yeah? At least. At least. So if I said to you, for example, you have to be greater than or equal to 18 to vote, right? That means you could be 18 or older. If I said to you, you have to be at least 18 to vote, it means the same thing. At least 18 means you have to be 18 at a minimum, but you could be higher, you could be older. And the last way to say that is no less than. Okay, to vote, you can't be less than 18. You can't be any less than 18. It means you have to be 18 or older. All right, so I think the first way that I wrote down for each one, most people are familiar with, but sometimes like the at most and at least, people haven't seen those before. All right, so is there any questions on that? Okay. And what are these 4 symbols called again? Together as a group, they are the 4, inequality symbols. Yep, good. All right, so now let's take an example and let's change it into an inequality. Okay, and the first one, do you guys already have that printed? Okay, so you don't have to copy that. So it says a number, W, that's just the letter they chose for us to use, minus 3.5 is less than or equal to -2. Let's just underline what's important there. There's not a lot of extra words in that sentence, but most of the words there are pretty important. So can somebody tell me as you start reading it, what's something that's important? The first thing you see that we're going to use when we write it. Yeah? W, that's the first thing that's important. W just represents a number. You could have used X, you could have used something, but they said W. All right, what's the next thing there that's important? Yeah? Minus, absolutely. That tells you something very important. Right, the next thing, yeah? Something before that. 3.5, that's going to be part of our answer. That is what's being minused. So we need to know that number. And then the next thing that you just said, that's also important, is less than or equal to. And then the -2. So the only thing that's really not important in that sentence is a number. So if it's not important, I could basically cross it out, and you should still be able to do the problem. W minus 3.5 is less than or equal to -2. All right, Bree, can you tell me how would I write W minus 3.5?
W with a minus sign in between 3.5.
Yep, so W, the minus sign, and 3.5. Natalie, what would come right after the 3.5?
The less than or equal to sign.
Yeah, the less than or equal to sign. So we're going to be using that one. Okay, less than or equal to. And Emily, what is that less than or equal to? What number? -2. Now, you don't have to solve that. We're going to talk about how to solve that at some point. But for now, you just had to translate it into an inequality. Any question on how we did that? Okay. Let's try B. A number n, so n is the letter they want you to use this time, is no less than 5. So sometime when I see no less than, I like to think of it the more basic way. What does no less than really mean? Like if I said you cannot be less than 18 to vote, what does that really mean, like as an inequality? Natalie? That number or over, and what's the inequality that we use to represent a number or over?
Greater than or equal to?
Right. That whole part that I underlined in red is no less than. That's this inequality right here. Greater than or equal to. Okay, so we've got that. And then the only thing we really need out of this sentence is what goes on each side of it. N goes on one side, 5 goes on the other. And that's all there really is to that one. So, yeah. Yeah, just sign out. So, Joe, could you tell me how I would write that as an inequality? And, yep. Well, what inequality symbol did we decide to use here? We already picked that.
One facing to the right and the line underneath.
Yep. Do you remember how to say that one?
No.
Anyone help them out? How do you say that one? Caleb?
Greater than or equal to.
Greater than or equal to. So n is greater than or equal to, and then what number goes on the other side?
5.
Yeah. Good. Right? And that's how you do B. So n is greater than or equal to 5. All right, let's try one more of that type. So C. A number x times 13 is at most 8. So the only thing that's not important there really is a number. X times 13 is at most 8. Let's start with that one. X times 13. Mia, how would you write x times 13? Yep. And where do we normally put the number when we multiply? We could put it in parentheses, but where else do we see it sometimes if we don't want to use parentheses? When we have a variable. Michael?
U and dot.
You could do it as a dot. What if I don't want to do a dot or parenthesis? There's a way I can write x times 13 without any symbols. There's like a normal place we would just put the 13. I think we had one like this in the warm-up. Yep. So you're thinking of like absolute value. So no, we don't need the bars. Yep. In front of the variable. So if you want to write x times 13, you can just write 13x. Okay, so 13x. If you did this, it's not wrong. You can write x with the 13 after it. It's not normally how we would do it, but you could. Okay, so 13x is at most So look at your chart. And what inequality symbol means at most? Please? Less than or equal to. All right? If I said I will spend at most $10 on that item, at most means I don't want to go more than 10. So I want to be 10 or less. So x times 13 is less than or equal to. And what's going to go on the other side? Michael? Michael's side. 8. There you go. So 13x is less than or equal to 8. Any question on that? Now, if we look back at some of these inequalities, some of them, well, they all have a letter, but they have different numbers you could plug in, and it would work. Like, for example, if I plugged in 6 for n, would I get a true statement if I plug 6 in for n? What do you think, Hunter? Well, how would you read this if you change the n to a 6? Okay, don't change the n to a 6. How would you read it just the way it is? Oh wait, how do you read, what's this? What's this? Or equal to, and what's this? 5. So read the whole thing. Yep, so n is greater than or equal to 5. Now, if you change the n to a 6, how would you read it? Is that true, what you just said? So 6 is not greater than or equal to 5? Yeah, 6 is greater than or equal to 5. 6 is a bigger number than 5. So if you filled 6 in that case it would work. How about if we filled in 10? Sean, if you filled 10 in, how would you read that? 10 is greater than or equal to 5. Is that true? Yeah, 10 is greater than or equal to 5. Definitely. Now let's say you filled in 2. 2 is greater than or equal to 5. Is that true? Natalie? No. 2 is not greater than or equal to 5. So the point here is when you fill in a number for the letter, there are some numbers that work and there are some numbers that don't. The numbers that work are called solutions. Okay, so on your guided notes it says a blank is a value that makes an inequality true. And you want to write down what's underlined in red. A solution of an inequality is a number that makes it true. So in the last problem we did 6. 6 was a solution because it was greater than 5. We did 10. 10 was a solution because it was greater than or equal to 5. But then we tried 2. And 2 was not a solution because 2 was not greater than or equal to 5. So there's a bunch of numbers that are greater than or equal to 5. Not just 6, not just 10, 12, 70, 2,672,000. There's a bunch of numbers that are greater than or equal to 5. And if I ask you, what do you call all the numbers that are greater than or equal to 5? That's every solution. That's called the solution set. Okay, so in that next blank down below, you want to fill in solution set. We call it a set because there's more than one answer. Right? There's more than just one number that's greater than or equal to 5. There's thousands of numbers, millions of numbers that are greater than or equal to 5. And they're called a solution set. So let's try a couple more where I give you an inequality, and I want you to fill in a number and see if it works. Just like we did with the last one. So the number that I want you to check is -4. Do you guys have the inequalities written for A and B? No. Okay, so I need to give you those. The first one I want you to check is this one. I want to know if you fill in -4 for the variable, do you get a true statement? And then I want you to do it for B. I want you to fill in -4 for the variable and tell me if you get a true statement. So all you have to write for the answer is yes, it is a solution, or no, it is not. Okay? So take a couple minutes and try that, and we'll walk around and help you guys. Okay, so all we're doing in each one of these is filling in the number -4 and seeing if it works or it doesn't work. So let's start by putting the -4 in for x in A. So we have -4 plus 8 is less than -3. And the question is that correct or is that wrong? We want to know. All right, so on the left-hand side, what's -4 plus 8? Dorian? That's 4. So we get 4 is less than, or 4 is smaller than -3. Does that work? What do you think? No. Right, 4 is not less than -3. So what does that mean about the number we plugged in? What does that mean about -4? Yeah. It is not a solution. Okay? That didn't work. So -4 is not a solution. Right? Let's try the second one. So now we're going to fill -4 in right there. So we have -4.5. And I'm going to put it in parentheses because I'm doing multiplication. And I can't just put two numbers next to each other when they're multiplied. We have to put either a dot between them or something. So -4.5 times -4 is greater than -21. Now, I saw some people get a little stuck because they had a decimal here. But it doesn't even matter that this is a decimal because it's a negative times a negative. And what do you always get when you multiply a negative times a negative? You always get a positive. So this number is going to be a positive. Yeah.
Do you want that?
Yeah. Just wait for what was it? I think Natalie to come back. So a negative times a negative is always positive. And how does a positive number compare to a negative number? A positive number is always what? Yeah? Yeah, it's always greater than that. Any positive number is always greater than a negative number. So this works in this case. So -4 is a solution. If you really want to figure out what that is, it's 18, -4.5 times -4. But again, you don't have to write that down. You just have to write down that it is a solution. So any questions on those two? Now, Abby, is -4 the only number that would work in this problem? No, there's a bunch of numbers that would work. Like -5 would work, because that's still a negative times a negative, and a positive is always bigger than a negative. So there's more than one answer that works. And does anyone remember, what do you call all the answers that work? You just wrote that down on your guided notes. The solution set. Very good. It's the set of numbers that work. Good. One way to visualize a solution set, or one way to show me all the numbers that work, is to draw a picture. Okay? And this is called graphing an inequality. So at the back on your guided notes, it says the blank shows the solution set of an inequality on a number line. And you want to write down the graph of an inequality. You might have to write it above it because the number of the blank isn't that big. But the graph of an inequality shows the solution set on a number line. And right below that, you guys have three numbers, 1, 2, 3, for the three steps that we need to do when we want to graph an inequality on a number line. And if you're wondering what it's going to look like, well, if you look at example 4 on your guided notes, that's the kind of thing we're looking at doing. We're looking at making a picture that's going to look just like example 4. So, the first step. Whenever you want to graph an inequality, we want it to be written a certain way. There's three things. The first thing we want is the letter. We want the letter on the left. The next thing we want is the symbol. What symbol will it be? Well, it'll be one of 4. It's either going to be a less than or equal to, greater than, or greater than or equal to. So letter, symbol, and then number. That's the order we always want it written in. Here's an example. Letter, symbol, number. Now, you can also write that another way. We don't recommend writing it this way, but you could see this. That means the same thing. The inequality is pointing at the x, and when I wrote it this way, it's still pointing at the x. These mean the same thing, but this way is better. Does anybody know why the way on the left is better to write an inequality? It has to do with when you draw it. When you draw it, if you set it up this way, this symbol tells you something. It tells you which way you're going to draw an arrow when you make your picture, if you write it this way. If you don't write it this way, then this symbol does not tell you which way you're going to draw an arrow. So that's why I always recommend writing it this way. Then the symbol will tell you the direction of your arrow. Okay, so that's the first thing. We want to make sure that it's letter, symbol, number. Second thing, if you look at example 4, you're going to see there's two number lines. One of them has a filled-in circle, and one of them has what we call an open circle. We have to decide what kind of circle to put on the number line. That's step 2. So on your guided notes it says use we call that an open circle. When we're graphing an inequality, we always use the open circle if you see one of those two symbols in your problem. A less than or a greater than. Does anyone have a guess what the other circle is called? Yep.
Closed circle?
That's a closed circle or a filled-in circle. So, on your guided notes, I can see it's missing the little inequality. Copy down these two things. The line should be under the symbol. Okay, so next to the filled-in circle, make sure you put the two lines under those symbols right there. Did everyone add those two symbols in on their guided notes? These two little lines? Okay, so we had our problem set up the way it should be. We put a circle on the number, which they'll tell you the number in the problem. And the last thing we have to do is draw an arrow. So step 3 is shade the number line with an arrow. Now the arrow can either point left or it's going to point right. How do you know which way it's going to go? You shade the number line with an arrow in the direction that the inequality is pointing. Again, that is assuming you did step 1. If you skipped step 1, then this might not work. So you have to set it up the proper way first. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll try a couple of these problems, but we'll try it 2 different ways. One way, I'm going to ask you to make a graph. And the second way, I'll give you the graph. So we'll try it each way. Okay, does everybody have step 3? Now, on your guided notes, do you guys already have number lines printed? Are the number lines labeled? Okay, so we'll have to put numbers on them. If this was edge elastic, they would already be numbered for you. You won't have to do that part. You'll just have to click on the number line and then put either a filled-in circle or an open circle, and then drag it whichever way you want it to go. That's how it'll be set up on the test. All right, so let's try this one. Y is less than or equal to -3. So step 1, I want to check if it's set up the correct way. Natalie, is this one set up in the correct order?
Yes.
Yes. Letter, symbol, number. It's exactly the way we want it. So step 1 is done. So we've got our number line. We're going to have to put some numbers on it. Let's do like -3, -2, 1, 0. You don't have to number the whole thing. Just you can number a few numbers. How many is a few? 3 or 4. That's usually good enough. Okay. Now we have to decide on what kind of circle. Is this going to be an open circle? Or is this going to be the closed circle, the filled in one? What type of circle, yeah?
Closed.
Closed. How do you know that?
Because there's the symbol on the bottom of the less than or equal to.
Yeah, this is a less than or equal to. When you have the symbol on the bottom, that symbol means fill the circle in. Sophie, what number am I going to put the circle on? The filled-in circle.
-3.
Yep, we're going to put a filled-in circle on -3. And the answer to this problem is all values that are less than or equal to -3. So which way am I going to draw my arrow to show the numbers that are less than -3? I don't want more, I want less. Yep, Abby. To the left. It's pointing to the left, so we shade everything to the left. Some teachers might have you draw your arrow above the number line. If you want to do that, you can. You can do it right on the number line. That's fine too. Again, it's more of how it's going to be on the test. That's important to know how to do that. So. All right. Let's look at this one. 2 is less than x. Okay, any thoughts on this one before we start it, yeah? It is set up incorrectly. This is not the way you want to write it. What do we want to see first? Always, yep. The variable. We want the letter, we want the symbol, and then we want the number. Now we have to decide what symbol to put here. You can't just put anything you want. When you rewrite it, so when we set it up properly, it has to have the same meaning as the original. Otherwise, you change the problem. Where was the inequality symbol pointing when we started this number? Or better question, what was it pointing at? Lexi? So it's like, so pointing, like if you think of it as an arrow like this, it's pointing at the 2, right? It's pointing at the 2. When you fix it, it still has to point at the 2. If it doesn't point at the 2, then we messed up. Okay, so means the same thing, but now we know which way we have to shape. To make our number line, I'm just going to number a few numbers on it. And what kind of circle do I need this time? Open or closed? Tirza? Yep, we're going to do an open circle because it doesn't have the little line under it. And what number is the open circle going to go on, Tirza? 2. Open circle on 2. And I want to shade all numbers that are greater than 2. So which way am I going to shade to show the numbers that are bigger than 2? Yeah? To the right. What I'm drawing an arrow for right now, this is the solution set. That's a picture of it. It's everything on the shaded part of the number line. Any questions on that? Yeah.
Same with the thing.
Yep.
Do you do that with the equal to one as well?
Yep. If this was the original problem, 2 is less than or equal to x. When I fixed it, it would be this. That's how you would do it. And we would have to fill this circle in. And now that would be the correct answer. Yeah. But you guys could just leave it the way we had it. All right, let's try one more of those. X is greater than 0. All right, first question. Is it set up the right way? Monica? Yep. Letter, symbol, number. Perfect. So we don't have to adjust that. Let's make our number line. This time, really, you could just probably put, I don't know, just put a couple numbers so people can tell what the number line is. -1, 0, and 1. And Jacinda, what kind of circle am I going to use? Open on what number? 0. And I want to shade which way? To the left or to the right? To the right, because it's pointing to the right. Any questions on the type where I give you something and you make the picture? All right. Last type. This type is just the opposite. I'll give you the picture. I want you to give me the inequality. So you have to pick a letter. Doesn't matter what letter you pick. I would always pick X. So let's start with that. There's my letter. The next thing I need is my symbol. What symbol would give me a filled-in circle to the right? Yep. Yep. Greater than or equal to. So X is greater than or equal to what would be my value? Yep. 48. Perfect. Again, do you have to use X? No. You could use Y. You could use N. but I would probably pick X. All right, let's do one more of those. All right, last one. Open circle on 52, shaded left. Okay. First thing I need to write down is what? 80? Yep, put my letter. What symbol gives me an open circle shading left? Yep. Less than. And X is less than what number? Yep. 52. Okay. So just a reminder, at the beginning of class, I said this week we're going to have a review day on Thursday. If you look online, we're doing lessons 8, 9, and 10 this week. It's 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3. There is a folder here for a review. You don't have to do anything with the review. I already have it printed. I'm going to just give it to you in class on Thursday. So the homework tonight is lesson 8. It's a worksheet in lesson 8. Also, reminder, progress reports close on Friday.